Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Really excited today because we're announcing that Multnomah County has grant dollars available for restaurants, food carts, bed and breakfasts with 5 or fewer operator licenses. Multnomah County has about $7.6 million to distribute, which is part of the larger $55 million statewide grant package intended to help small businesses. Governor Brown made it clear that we should prioritize businesses that have been financially impacted by public health measures, with an emphasis on the hospitality industry and small businesses impacted by the freeze, as well as women, Black, Indigenous, people of color, and tribal-owned businesses. Multnomah County is committed to following that guidance. As you know, the funding has an expiration date, December 30th. So right now we are focused on getting these funds out the door as quickly as possible to provide immediate help. But we're also realistic. These small grants are just that, they're small. Our small business owners have endured months of hardship during one of the most difficult chapters in our community's history. And I want to take a moment to thank so many small business owners and their employees for making sacrifices to do their part in slowing the spread of this virus. While this relief can be meaningful, we understand that it is just not enough. Our local small businesses are the backbone of our community. And so Multnomah County is going to keep fighting at the state and federal levels for more aid to help our small businesses survive long enough to recover and then to thrive again. But there's no way around it. December is going to be hard for all of us. So I'm asking our community to show a little love to each other, to help us get through the challenges ahead by doing 3 things. 1, please stay home as much as you can. Keep your outings only to essential tasks. Avoid indoor gatherings with people outside of your household as much as you can, and keep taking those precautions that we know will work, like wearing a mask, practicing hygiene, and keeping your distance. And second, if you can, please shop local. We can support small business safely by shopping at their online stores, taking advantage of delivery or safe curbside pickup. And since you're at home, try eating local too. Our small businesses need us to step up more than ever before. And lastly, if you can, find ways to support organizations working hard to be there for our most vulnerable community members. And with that, I will hand it over to Jeff Martin. He's an environmental health supervisor.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this program got started this morning actually at 11 o'clock, and it's a program really specific to help the food service industry in our area. So we made, through the comments that we heard from our food service advisory committee, who said that they need help and they need financial help, and they need to have that funding mechanism as simple as possible. So we came up with a way of getting the money to those small local businesses as easy as possible, where they apply for it through a form on our website. They provide a copy of their W-9, and at the end of the month, we'll be able to be sending them back some money towards their permit. So at this point, we were able to support mobile units. If you have fewer than 5 or fewer in Multnomah County, you're going to be eligible for $500 per mobile unit, so a maximum of $2,500. And if you're a restaurant with 5 or fewer licenses, you're eligible for $1,500, or a maximum of $7,500. The email went out this morning, and we're really happy to see that we've already had over 400 applicants for this money within the first 2 hours. And as we start processing through that paperwork, we'll be sending it out as quickly as possible. So again, it's for mobile units, restaurants, caterers, bed and breakfasts, and limited service facilities, as well as the network organizations. So, yeah, and I turn it over to John.
I don't think I have too much to add. I'm assisting the chair with business COVID relief, so I'm available to help answer questions and kind of work in the background to help kind of mobilize some of these funds.
That's great. Before we open it up for questions, I did see that Commissioner Lori Stegman, who represents East County, jumped on. I want to give Commissioner Stegman a chance to say hello, and then we can move on to reporters' questions. Commissioner, if you're out there and you can put yourself on video, we'll be able to see you.
Thank you, Julie. I don't believe my video is turned on yet, but I'm happy to say a couple of words. As a county commissioner representing East County and a small business owner, oh, I see my video started. As a small business owner myself, representing East County, I understand how difficult and devastating these times are for small business owners. And so I'm absolutely thrilled and excited that we have been able to find some small revenue that can help small businesses during this time. And I look forward to assisting businesses here in East County. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Really appreciate it. With that, we did get a couple of early questions from the Oregonian, and I'll go ahead and ask those unless I see I'm scrolling through the participants to see if the O is on, and I don't exactly see somebody. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the questions. This is from Doug Perry at the Oregonian. Hey, Doug. Could you please tell us if there were earlier grants given out to county restaurants and food carts via the CARES Act, or will these be the first?
I will just respond to that by saying that these are actually the first funds for business relief that the county is making available to restaurants. We know that cities have had these dollars, but these are the first from Multnomah County.
Okay. Doug had a second follow-up question before we jump on. He asks how it was decided how much of the available funds, which is 5.3 million out of the 7.6 million, would go to restaurants and food courts or food carts. So can you talk about how that was prioritized?
Sure. Well, we know that the governor in her announcement prioritized hospitality industry and those businesses that had been hardest hit by COVID-19 and by the restrictions. And myself and all of the Multnomah County commissioners felt very strongly that restaurants, because they have been hit particularly hard during this pandemic, would receive the bulk of our funding. We also know that brick and mortar restaurants have been forced to close in-person dining, and we wanted to make sure that the funding amounts reflected that additional hardship. We also wanted to make sure that the funds had a substantive impact, but without exhausting all of the funds, because we know that there are other businesses, other small businesses in our county who have also been hurt by this pandemic.
Commissioner?
Yes, I'd like to also add that through the East County Visitors Development Fund, we were able to fund over $300,000 to East County hotels back in last June or July.
So the first for restaurant and food carts and a little bit of help elsewhere later on. Doug was racing on, and I'm happy to keep asking Doug Perry questions, or I can open it up to somebody else and then circle back to Doug's in a minute. So if anybody wants to unmute themselves and go ahead and ask Kelly, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, yes, if you don't mind. Mine's a little bit off of the restaurant topic. That's going to be Keaton Thomas. But Chair Kafoury, I would like to ask you just about the risk assessment designation for Multnomah County. If you can, talk a little bit about how Multnomah County is preparing. We are hearing that Multnomah County will be considered extreme risk by OHA. And what long-term effects do you see that having on our county?
Well, the one thing that I try to tell people is that really during this time, the only thing we can be certain of is uncertainty, and we need to be prepared for continuing to do the same types of, following the same guidelines that we always have about staying at home as much as possible, reducing your trips to essential trips, washing your hands, wearing a mask, and maintaining 6 feet of separation at least from others if you must go out. I actually, the extreme risk order changes are not that far off from the freeze. It expands a little bit of opportunity for these restaurants that we're talking about today to have outdoor dining again, and it also restricts further some of the guidelines for retail stores. There are a few other areas, and I'm happy to go through those. We also have more information on our website about what that means. I think while some of the details may have changed, the messaging to our residents in Multnomah County is still the same. Again, it is the virus is out there, and you should figure that every time that you are out in public and you encounter someone that person may have COVID-19. So please, please, please take as many precautions as you can.
And a quick follow-up, if you don't mind. Obviously, we've talked a lot over the last week about gatherings for Thanksgiving. And, you know, a number of our medical experts have commented that this will likely be going on into Christmas as well. Do you have concerns about our case numbers rising over the next 2 weeks because of Thanksgiving? And what are your thoughts on hospitals and their capacity being close to being reached at this point?
We're all very concerned about our hospital capacity, and part of the reason is here in the metro area, we have the greatest number of hospital beds in the entire state. So when we hear about other counties and other communities who feel that the restrictions might be too restrictive for them, if folks there get sick and get seriously sick, they come into Multnomah County. So we do bear the burden for the entire state of Oregon. I think we're all watching carefully the numbers. We do expect that as it's gotten colder outside and people are coming indoors, that these numbers will continue to rise. And that's why we had a freeze, and that's why we have the extreme risk level that we're going to be in after December 3rd, because we need to continue to take as many precautions as we can, not just for ourselves, but for our friends, our family, and our neighbors.
Thank you.
If there are any other reporters, otherwise I can go back to Doug's question.
I have a question.
Keaton,
Oh, go ahead, please. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Keaton.
This is Keaton with K2. We'll just stick with the K2 train here. So, Chair, thanks for taking some time. I guess, first of all, how many businesses do you think will be able to ultimately take advantage of this grant program? And secondly, was there any way to offer more than $1,500? I just don't know how far $1,500 can go for, you know, a single restaurant.
You raise a great point, Keaton, and I think that's why in my original statement I said that these small grants are just that, they're small, and we wish we could do more. We know that Multnomah County and local governments just don't have the funding to provide the amount of aid necessary, and that's why we're calling on the state and really on the federal government to step up and do the right thing, which is when we ask our small businesses to shut down, when we ask people to take on a level of restriction in their lives, that we should compensate them for that. And the federal government needs to do that. We've been loud and vocal since day one of this pandemic that we can't do it by ourselves. We need the federal government to be our partner, and we're still asking them, hold a special session, come back to work, and get more dollars out to our small businesses and to our families who are suffering. And then I'll let Jeff talk a little bit about the number of restaurants in Multnomah County that we think will be able to participate in this program.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we have about 4,500 licensed restaurants and mobile units throughout the county. So that involves everything from the small mobile units in the streets to pods to some of our bigger event centers. And the same goes for restaurants. And so overall, out of those 4,500 facilities, we're hoping that this small grant program will impact about 3,500 or more facilities. So quite a few of them would be able to take advantage of it.
And I guess to follow up, will there be leftover money afterwards? I recall the chair saying something about that, or I might be wrong, but if my math is 3,500 times 1,500 or 500, does that equal 7.6 million?
You're quick, Keaton. You're good with the dollar amounts there. We actually will have money from this fund left over. Not only do we anticipate that not every business will be able to participate, but we've allocated through the restaurant portion about 5.3 million of our $7.6 million that we are getting from the state. The rest of the money, we are going to follow the rest of the governor's guidance on how these dollars should be spent, and we are going to focus our those funds on Black, Indigenous, and people of color owned businesses, and we'll have more information later this week about how people can and how businesses can apply for those funds.
Thank you.
Any other reporters before I go ahead to Doug Perry's final question?
I have questions. To clarify on the previous round of questions, so is everyone who applied and is eligible going to receive funding?
Yes, that's a great question. We actually, we could have designed this program in many different ways with a long list of criteria and have a committee come together to try to decide who gets the funding. But since we have to have these dollars out the door by the end of this month, actually December, I keep forgetting we're still in November. We have to have the dollars out by the end of December. Time is of the essence. We also know that our businesses are hurting today. So every business, every restaurant, food cart owner who meets the criteria that applies will get these funds.
Okay, thanks. And then another question is, for this first round of funding that's going out, is the prioritization of women and Black, Indigenous, and POC-owned businesses happening in that round, or is that only in the follow-up round?
Yes. Again, there are many ways we could have designed a program that would have done a better job of highlighting certain businesses, but we decided that because time is of the essence, we really need to get these dollars out quickly. So it's just for restaurants, regardless of who owns them. That being said, the next round of funding will be targeted for women, Black, Indigenous, and people of color owned businesses. We're also especially looking at highlighting East County. The city of Portland has given away grants to local businesses, but our East County cities have not been able to do to the same extent. So we are also going to be looking at highlighting our small businesses in East County.
Thank you.
I'll jump in here with Doug Perry's final question, which is, are there tax implications for receiving these grants? And I don't know, John or?
I think, yeah, John, would you mind answering that question? Great.
Yeah, so any business, so one thing, all businesses applying do have to submit a W-9. So that's one criteria that has to be met before funding is made available. And any business that's getting over $600 in grants will receive a 1099 from us. It's basically a statement they receive some income, and then they'll have to work with their tax preparer to figure out how that implicates their taxes. So I guess we're not accountants, so we can't really talk about how this funding will impact tax liability, but we will be sending out information at the 1099 that will need to be reported.
If you don't mind, I have one more question.
Of course, go ahead.
Chair Kafoury, I'm sorry, this is for you again, and it is on the extreme risk category. Do you foresee Multnomah County being able to get out of the extreme risk, and what's it going to take?
Well, I desperately hope that we will be able to move out of the extreme risk category. I think that depends on the numbers, and that depends on us following the guidelines, the restrictions, and the precautions that our public health experts have outlined for us. But I don't foresee it coming anytime soon, as we know that there will be a bump up after the Thanksgiving holiday from people who traveled or who had gatherings with people outside of their households. And then with Christmas and other holidays right around the corner, we foresee that might have an implication for us as well. So I would say it's up to all of us to follow the rules and guidelines that our public health experts have outlined for us. And I do think, though, that we are going to be in this phase for a while.
Thank you.
So last call for questions, and I just put in the chat and remind everybody that that if you would share the webpage, which has the application form, it's moltco.us/business grants December 2020, that's DEC 2020. It's in the chat box and it's at the bottom of our press release. And if you could share it, because Jeff Martin just isn't busy enough these days. And go ahead.
This is John with Channel 12. I have a quick question. Is there any estimate on the financial impact for the hospitality industry in Multnomah County that you guys are seeing? That like, is there a number that you would like to see in aid come from either the state or the federal government?
John, do you have any information on that?
Yeah, so with the restrictions in sit-down dining for the brick and mortar businesses, we've heard that people are experiencing losses as high as 86% of their revenue compared to this time last year. So it's so substantial.
We're also calling on the federal government, not just to help all our small business owners who have been, and some of them disastrously impacted by this, but also to help our residents who, when the eviction moratorium ends at the end of December, will be facing a lot of back rent due, and folks need that assistance from the federal government to be able to stay in their homes, which we know is crucial to slowing the spread of the virus as well.
And I just have one quick other question. Is the county, do you guys want to see the state have a special session before January 1st? Is that something that you've been talking with local lawmakers about? And I guess where do things stand from your guys' perspective with that?
Multnomah County is very much in support of the legislature and the governor holding a special session before the end of the year. And I sent a letter to the speaker, to the Senate president, and to the governor, myself and our Portland mayor, Ted Wheeler, which I'm happy to get you a copy of, asking them to have a special session.
Thank you.
If that's all the call, I want to thank everybody for joining us, especially our three guest speakers, Chair Kafoury, Jeff Martin, John Vashutinsky, and Commissioner Stegman. Appreciate you all being here.